Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm going to share my screen and give me just a second here. I don't want to ruin our flow because Jeannie has got something fabulous to begin with.
Always appreciate that start.
Well, welcome everybody. We're thrilled to have you, whether you're new or you've been with us now. This is our fourth one. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeannie because she has a great opening. Oh, yeah, Jeannie. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, are we seeing the slides right now?
No, we're on a black slide.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Focus is on you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm going to take a moment for body presence.
Yeah, why don't we all put our hand on our heart? How about that? It's
been a little bit of a chaotic morning, and so I'm so glad to be here. And what I like to do when I start, even with client sessions, is to feel my feet on the ground. Feel your seat sitting. Just notice the sensation of your body just arriving fully present. So, in 2011, I decided to run my first group coaching program. And much like our theme today, it was around visioning what's possible and opening the field of possibility. And I had about 8 people. We would meet in a Union Square yoga studio space. And I had one girl who came in. She was working a customer service job at Gilt Group, the fashion retailer online. And she said she had a dream to become a travel blogger. And she came into group, and her favorite magazine was Afar magazine, which is this popular travel magazine. And one day she comes in, it was probably the 3rd week of group, and comes in and she's like, I was on the Stairmaster at the gym flipping through Afar magazine, and they picked a picture, a photo that I had put on their Facebook wall, and they put it into the magazine. We're celebrating. We're like, signpost, keep going towards like that which you desire. Hold that vision and keep moving towards it. Fast forward 3 years, she's walking through Washington Square Park in New York City and sees an activation by Travelocity for a trip around the world, grabs the flyer, sends me a text. It was a Sunday, I'll never forget. I don't usually take calls at the last minute. And she said, can you help me with this project? I have to make a 60-second video for a contest to win a trip around the world. And I thought something about it really resonated. So I showed up, we made a video on an old school camera about why she should get nabbed by the Travelocity gnome. And 6 weeks later, we got actually right after that, I said, let's shake hands. And if you win, like I'll be your trip, companion. And long story short, there was a couple weeks of voting online, and we became the recipients of Travelocity's $65,000 trip around the world. And I traveled the world for 26 days with my former client. So anything is truly possible with a vision and with action.
Yeah, it's so true. The vision and action part. And I love that story. Jeannie, you have to show your pictures at some point. But one of the things for me, it's a little bit more personal. So in 2010 specifically, there was absolutely no hope or evidence that the guy that had just broken up with me, that he and I would ever get together. We had been off and on for almost 10 years. But I just felt like I wasn't ready to let it go. And I prayed in faith. I actually went to a specific spot in Pacifica, California, about 20 minutes south of my house. And I really wanted him not only to marry me, because I realized in that moment that I wanted to be with him, but I wanted him to propose to me at that specific spot that had been special to the two of us. And now this, obviously, you can't control what other people do, but I do think that there's a huge power in visioning and faith and action. And 3 years later, he actually did propose to me at that very spot. So for anybody here that might be looking for hope in any situation, but also looking for a way to activate that vision, that's what we're here to focus on today. And really the whole concept that we want to speak to about a mindset this is one of my favorite things. I actually got this from a little notebook that I found when I was at Orcas Island last December. And it really spoke to me because I've always said that anything is possible, But I love this everything is possible. It seems like that's even a bigger possibility. So when I say mindset, really thinking about what is it in your mind that you want to open up for yourself. And that's what we want to focus on today. So we're going to talk about how to make your dreams come true, casting your vision. Now I know that might sound like, oh yeah, we've all heard that before. We all probably actually know what to do. So I want to remind everybody this is not necessarily a, ooh, here's going to be all these absolutely new brand spanking things today. But my hope and our hope is that you're going to leave at least with one thing that you can do specifically right after this call. And maybe even during, we'll be able to spend some time focusing on that. So we're going to reflect on what you want, which is often the hardest question of all. What do you want? Explore tools to make your vision happen, and then identify some of those obstacles and how to overcome them. So that's going to be our agenda for the day. And I know pretty much everybody has been on the call so far, but did want to mention the fact that Jeannie and I have known each other for a few years. We have very similar values and we love working together. We have a lot of fun together, actually. And that's how we came together to make these things happen. Did you want to add anything there, Jeannie, about any of that? I'm trying to think. I'm not able to see everybody. Yep, go ahead.
I'll just quickly add that I think we really shared. I know that when I'm in Karen's presence, I love the question, who do you become in the presence of a person? And I've mentioned that before. And I feel expansive. And there's a buzzword going around now, expanders. It's interesting, my clients and people have been using it it's been catching on, which is, does this person make you feel more expansive? Do you create more ideas? Do you generate more energy? Do you just feel like your being is expanding? And that's what Karen does for me. So.
Oh, well, likewise. And I'd say that between the two of us, we have probably 40 plus years of experience, if my math is right. So let's talk about specifically hearing from you and thinking about what a dream is that you have yet to realize in your life. Now, I also want to clarify that sometimes the word dream also can feel really huge, like, oh my gosh, I have no idea. And yet some of you also might be really clear. And I want to also just clarify that when we talk today, vision and dream are really almost interchangeable. I would say that vision is almost like a bigger picture of what do you want for your life overall. And then there might be dreams within that you're going for. And too often we just don't take the time to dream. So that's one of the things that we're both going to recommend today. But let's hear from you. What's a dream that you have yet to realize in your life? And what I'm going to do, I would like to bring it to gallery view and take the slides off. So just hold that if anybody would be willing to share that. And if that feels a little bit too big for you right now, perhaps, but you want to share something, think about maybe a goal that you have yet to realize that you would like to make come true. Would anyone be willing to share?
Go ahead, Megan.
And Jean, this is Cecilia. I haven't.
Oh, hi, Cecilia.
Hey, Karen.
Hi.
I haven't been able to make any of these, but I've been watching them on the recorded version. So I just to kind of piggyback on Jeannie's story, a little that I'm still working on making it happen. When I was 25, I spent my entire 25th year traveling around the world by myself. And what I thought I wanted to do was every 25 years, I would travel around the world. And so I'm now 53. So when I would turn 50, I now have a family. I've got 2 kids. I'm like, it would be awesome to do this with my family. And I just haven't made it happen yet, but it's still on the list. So I'm working on it.
Love it. Thanks for sharing. That's great. Somebody else? Yes, Megan.
Hi.
Hi.
One of my dreams for a long time has been to write a book, to share my story, a memoir, to share my healing story. And I actually had a book deal in 2000, I think it was 9 or 10. And it literally got pulled like as I was about to turn in the manuscript, and I was devastated. But and my agent was like, this has never happened before. And I realized later that that was not the book I was meant to write, that was the universe doing me a favor. But I feel like now is truly my time, and it would be a different story now, and I have a lot more to share. And so that is something I'm really passionate about. I want my story to help other people. So that's one of my dreams.
Cool. Well, that's beautiful. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
Let's hear from one more. Everybody's made their dreams come true. We can end now.
You know, when you say it out loud, it already activates.
Exactly.
That strong.
Exactly. Start manifesting right now.
Yeah.
I can go. I don't.
Thanks, Whitney.
I have like huge dreams to really accomplish speaking Portuguese. I moved to Brazil in 2011, and it's been a journey just because I arrived here with no Portuguese, and I just see such an amazing community to like work in and be involved in on this. I just really want to motivate and inspire people to be more mindful and to kind of change the way they go about their day to day. I want to be a part of that. But language is it's a really important piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like a double thing. I'm kind of on two different paths, trying to really become the best kind of coach or motivator, with the right tools. But at the same time, I'm trying to master this second language and be able to communicate with a comfort level. So it's kind of like, it's a double dream or a double vision. So that's basically it.
Love it.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Whitney. Okay. So what I would ask as you're listening today is to think about this dream that you have yet to realize, and think about how you could start making that happen through some of the tools that we're going to talk about today. So wouldn't it be great if everything could just be in 3 easy steps? Visualize, take action, overcome obstacles. But we know that that isn't generally how things work, or there's a lot of things that get in the way with that. But it is, ironically, it is actually quite simple. And we're going to spend the bulk of our time on visualize and action, and then we'll spend a little bit more time on obstacles as we walk through this. But the piece I want to focus on related to visualize is that usually people don't spend enough time here, or we say we do it and then we don't really stay close to it. So specifically, one of the things I would recommend is, hold on there, I'll unmute that person. So to really create some time to actually set aside for dreaming. And I would suggest in the next week, maybe carve out 30 minutes if you have it, even 15 if you have just a small amount of time, but something to create a regular practice where you're really thinking about, and kind of in the mindset of possibility, just think about what could actually be possible for you. What do you want to become possible? So for example, on the back of one of my doors in my bedroom, I have a bunch of Post-its, big Post-its that are put up everywhere about the things that I want, and I have them categorized into areas. And we're going to talk a little bit more about other things that you can do to activate those. But some people like to journal and to write things down. Some people like to draw. Think about anything that's going to work for you, but it's also the biggest part is crafting out the time, or carving out the time. Yeah, Jeannie?
I would love for people to just drop in right now in the chat, yes or no. Do you make time for this currently on a regular, like on a daily basis or a weekly basis? I couldn't agree more that it's about staying close to and connected to. I know that I used to have a lot of strong mindset practices, particularly in the beginning of my business, where I would activate my mind every single morning, whether that was an audio that really connected me inward. So we'll talk about that more, but I'm just curious to feel the pulse, take the temperature in the room of where people are at with that, their own practice. We got no's, so 2 yeses, so far 4 no's. Okay, great. Well, I'm glad we're sharing this content.
Right.
All right.
Exactly. Well, one of the things I want to focus on here is this question is so simple, And yet, I don't know about any of you, but do we have any fans of The Notebook, the movie? Anybody here? A few people. So I think back to that classic scene where Ryan Gosling is saying, like, what do you want? What do you, just tell me, picture your life, X amount of years from now. What do you see? Are you with him? Are you with me? And he's got this entire vision, but I remember so vividly, probably because I connected so well with her at the time, many years ago, is when she just didn't know what she wanted. She goes, oh, I don't know. And she was so stymied with what she wanted. And this is so important to get clear about what you specifically want. And when I say you specifically, there's an enormous amount of people that continue to surprise me with my clients who are walking around living other people's dreams, maybe their parents or what their boss wants them to do, or whoever, someone else in their life. And we've got to get clear on what we actually want. And that is so, so critical. So I don't want to, I want to keep underscoring it as we go through this. So just be thinking about, what is it? Like, if you could have anything that you want, what would that look like for you? And we all have a destiny to fulfill. The question is, will we fulfill it? Another question that I like to ask myself is, what legacy do I want to leave? We touched on that one of our earlier calls, but I don't think we can say it enough of, what do you want people to walk away with when they experience you? Similar to what Jeannie had shared earlier. Who do you want people to become around you? How do you want to inspire people? How do you want to make a difference in the world? And thinking about this question of purpose. We hear this all the time. I know, talking with some of my clients during when the COVID situation started, particularly in the beginning, people were just feeling aimless. That was the general feeling I got of, I feel like I'm just not doing something on purpose anymore. Little things like, gosh, I'm not doing my regular routine. Everything has changed. So thinking about that classic knowing your why. Again, we've talked about this before. This is not necessarily new, but what's so critical is not just to talk about it, but to actually spend time figuring out, why is it that you're doing whatever it is that you're doing? And then how can you go and create the what in your life specifically? Because if you look at, like, wouldn't it be great? A lot of people talk about, when I do visioning, I'm always amazed at how many people talk about, oh, I just want to be on a beach and live out my days vacationing. And yet, when you look at the research, people want to be giving something back. We might want to sit on a beach for a while, but usually people get kind of bored after a while, like twiddling our thumbs. What do I do? What can I be doing to serve the world? So think about what that is for you. For me, one of the things on my bucket list was going to Greece. So I went there a few years ago, and it was a magical trip. It was everything that I had hoped for and more. There was so much that I had visioned that it would be. So think about what's possible for you. Many of you have done vision boards. They're not necessarily new. Again, I know I keep saying that, but I want to remind us that we might do this. I know for me, I've gone to these vision board workshops and I do the vision board. Sometimes I just put it aside. But if you can start getting in touch with the emotion of where you want your life to be. This was one where I wanted to be in a relationship. And going back again to the research, that when you can imagine it, you can feel it, the more emotion you can attach to something, the better. I remember years ago when I was talking to a coach that I had at the time, and he said to me, well, think about a week in your life of where you want to be. You want to be a writer? What would a writer have for breakfast? What time would a writer get up in the morning? Start stepping into it, because the coolest thing is that your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. So when you start imagining it, then all that has to happen is kind of all the energy forces sort of come together to make things happen. That's so, so key. And I feel like this, I've seen this work over and over and over again. Jeannie, I know you have something to say about this.
I couldn't agree more in terms of the actual activation of the feeling. So Danielle Laporte talks about designing your success plan with your core desires, and I know we've talked about this with the heart-driven mission, but it makes the biggest difference to live through your why. And my definition of purpose is how you experience your own beingness, your own being. It's not actually the what. That to me comes right after, but who do you want to be? How do you want to feel? How do you want to experience yourself? Because the context of our lives change hour to hour, day to day, even with the best laid plans or even when things are going well. But so really having a practice around the expression of how you want to be in any situation. So I have a personal line that, I created. I experience myself as, and I have key words that trigger a picture in my mind. So that visualization, I actively do on a daily basis. And, when things are not going well, I'm like, I'm experiencing myself in joy, and it really changes the way you relate even in difficult situations. So your why activation, let that be a practice throughout the day. It doesn't have to always be a big project. It can be in between all of the things.
That's a really good reminder, Jeannie, because I think about at my core, what my purpose is, what I really believe is to encourage and uplift women. It's just as simple as that. And then that manifests in a lot of different ways, whatever it might look like. So this is one example. This is one I did recently where I just used words, and I love the quote in the middle, which is the main reason why I'm showing this here. We can determine our own destiny. If you're a director, you've got to direct. If you're a writer, you've got to write. Nobody has to give you permission. If you're a storyteller, you tell stories. So use whatever's going to work for you. One other question that is so good to ask, and start getting in the regular practice of this. Well, what if this? What if that? The more we can start, again, this is a great sentence or 2 words to start activating that mindset of possibility. And another formula, which I really like, this is taken from Rachel Hollis, who wrote Girl Stop Apologizing most recently. And specifically, she talks about 10 years, 10 dreams, and 1 goal. So for example, thinking about 10 years from now, the year 2030, what are 10 dreams that you want to make happen? And then 1 goal to get you there that you work on for 90 days. So let's dive into this a little bit deeper, because one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're working on vision and dreams is that they say it as if it's going to happen. You need to say it as if it's actually happened. That's the key part. So for example, I love Manhattan. I've always wanted to own property there. So now one of my 10 dreams, and I would suggest that you write these out every day in a short sentence form. So for me, it's I own property in Manhattan. It's as simple as that. Or maybe it's for some of you, it might be I am financially free. Whatever it is that you want, but making sure that you act as if it's happened. I remember years ago working at a job back in the day, customer service rep, dreaming of the simplicity of what's so common for everybody probably now. But I remember I had just moved to San Francisco. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a house. I made a list one day when I was bored at my job, and I wrote, I want a car and a place to park it. Very important in San Francisco. A house with an apartment, I said, with a view, a fireplace, and a balcony. And what I should have done, if I'm a really good vision instructor here, facilitator, I should have held that close and continued to revisit it. But I say this only because sometimes things happen and start manifesting, even if you just do it once. And in this case, I put that piece of paper aside. I found it about 5 years later, scrunched up in my bedroom closet in the apartment where I had a car, a place to park it, a view, a fireplace, and a balcony. So consider how critical this can be to your dreams. I'm so passionate about it, I get really fired up because it's so important to act as if it's happened.
I think it's also really important to find the evidence that might not be the exact thing, but has the essence of that desire. So I'll say that again. So look for evidence on a daily basis that embodies the same essence of that desire. I remember wanting a private chef and saying, oh, that's something, when I was doing a big vision exercise. And then I started to see in small ways, particularly when I made a move, and I was working on this when I lived in Portland, Oregon. And I would go to this amazing vegan place, and they would make my food almost every day. So I didn't have a private chef in my house, but I had the experience of what I was looking for in a different form. So often we limit I think where we focus, where our attention goes, energy flows. And so it's more about, like Karen said, the universe doesn't know exactly, it doesn't care in which exact form, whether you're getting it from a restaurant or getting it from a person in your kitchen. So really, but it's critical to find the evidence, because that amplifies the emotional tonality on it, of how you're feeling, like, oh, it's coming. Yeah, this is a great experience. This is how I want to feel. So everything that we talked about with the why activation, finding evidence for how it's sort of arriving already is super, super powerful. And I think even in the beginning, it's critical, because that's what builds more energy around that area that you're working towards.
Yeah, that reminds me, Jeannie, of years ago when I had this vision board of a very specific living room and a view that I wanted. And I kept looking at it, because it was, again, I try to keep these things in a prominent place in my house so that I continue to see it, and then I feel. And I found out, what's funny is I ended up hiring a person to help decorate my place. And after I realized, oh my gosh, all of the colors in my house are the exact same colors. Now, it's not the view necessarily that I had expected, but it was just different, but it still was the same theme. So that just reminded me of that. The other thing I want to speak to is something that could be even simpler, the way you're looking at in front of you here, the 10 years, 10 dreams, one goal, is to put, for me, I love to write. So this is for those of you that like to journal. I write the date a year from now. I like to pick a year time frame. I would suggest at least a year or more. Some people like to do 6 months, but I think a year is really good. And write the date as if it's the year, what day is it today? May 20th. So May 20th, 2021. And then write as if it's that day and what's happening. So just by the act of writing, or, people are saying this to me, and oh my gosh, I have this going on and this. So again, reiterating the same thing, but just the importance of acting as if. It's very easy to get in the habit, because I have to catch myself sometimes too, where I'll say, I will be doing this. It's not that, it's I am. So I would suggest that everybody just take 30 seconds right now to jot down one dream that you made happen in 2030. And if you know what that is already, we'd love to hear it. You can drop it in the chat, or you can just mention it verbally. What is one dream that you made happen in the year 2030?
And I invite you to, if you're feeling afraid to claim it or own it, just decide and do it, and put it, make it public. Pushing you to your edge a little bit. I'll go first.
I wanted to ask you, Jeannie. I'm like, can I ask? Do you want to share? Well, you all know mine. I own property in Manhattan. Completing my PhD. Awesome. Love that. Keely. Yes. You are the CEO. All right. New York Times best-selling author. All right, we'll take about 20 more seconds. Drop them in the chat or speak them out loud. We'll move on. Nice, Jeannie. Graduating 30,000 people from your Personal Branding Institute. I hear the song now. Da, 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 da.
TED Talk
TED
speaker.
Talk. That's awesome, Natalie. So great. All right, well, feel free to keep dropping them in there. I'm going to walk through a little bit more here. Just get out of that. Okay, let's continue. Date of reference. This is one that I absolutely love, and I've seen it work multiple times with my clients as well as me. This is, sometimes you just don't know exactly what you want, and it could work if you do know exactly what you want. But pick a date that you want things to be different in your life. For me, 20 some years ago, my goal was to be a facilitator and a trainer of corporate offsites and retreats. I was an HR manager at the time. There was no real path for me that naturally was there. So I chose 6 months, and that would have been April. I just remember the month. I don't remember the year. But my coach suggested this. Just pick a date that you want to be different. Put it in your calendar. And it's great if you want to keep revisiting it, but you don't even have to do that. All I did is I put that date in there, and that started things going to action. Because do you know that on that exact date in April, I looked at my calendar, and that day I was leading my very first corporate retreat to the day. Now, it doesn't always happen to the day, but what I have seen is great shifts in people's businesses and their lives when they do this. So give it a try. Next up here is a vision formula. So this is something that you could use. This comes from Donald Miller, who has the company Story Brand. He uses this a lot for mission statements as well, but it works equally well for vision. So I will accomplish X by X because of X. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. The one that he used was, we will build a community garden by summer because the neighbors want to know each other better. Here's another one. I will reach 15,000 engaged followers by December 2020 because more women need to feel empowered. So again, think about what that might look like. I know I just threw that up there and we just talked about it, but does anybody want to take a shot at this now? I will accomplish X by X because of X. I know it's kind of on the spot, very much on the spot.
I've also found that when I hold an audacious or bold vision and I speak it out loud, oftentimes my first emotional response is like, ooh, cringe. Like it kind of scares me. Like, am I, and all the emotional tone of, is that really possible? And so I just want to normalize that. I think that's a very common initial response when you're writing this, that like I will accomplish, and really owning that can feel like a jerk inside your system. I had a meeting with a woman recently, or in the recent past, and I had sort of named this audacious financial goal. And she helped me reverse back out of that. And I remember thinking, I don't know if this is really possible, but let's just keep moving towards and leaning into this. And what I ended up experiencing was, in the process, like my mind just started to expand and ideas started flowing in, and then it felt more tangible. I was like, oh, this is a micro version of how I could reach that. And then we put a number on what that looked like in the short term. And then I saw that number, I took that number and then multiplied it over the course of how many years and reversed backed out of it. So obviously, if you're projecting like your financial forecasting, that also gives a lot of grounding towards the process. But even if it's an unattainable, it seems like an unattainable financial goal, it's really great to play with the numbers and play with different structures that open up new ideas. So what I'm trying to articulate is that the numbers might not come to fruition, but in the process of doing it, other ideas start to open in your mind space. So you expand the field of possibility. And I do that all the time with my clients who are in career transitions. oftentimes they find themselves in a really confined version of what they think they can do. And we go through this ideation process from practical, yes, you can keep doing the same thing you're doing, to bold, and just allowing yourself to go there and to be in that discomfort. Oftentimes there's just great new ideas that emerge.
Love it. All right, so we'll move past this here. We've talked about this before, so this is review, but just as a reminder, 3 Ds. Think about what do you want to decide that you're going to do? Declare that and really put that stake in the ground and start talking about it. Similar to what Jeanne said earlier, just saying it out loud, even here, can make a huge difference. And then start with the doing, taking action on that. And this was born out of a period of my life where I was feeling pretty stuck at a job. And then Jeanne and I were talking, and it was just, I finally decided what I wanted, declared it, and then did it within a short period of time. So I also want to say, for any of you that are feeling stuck, or you're just feeling like, gosh, things just aren't moving for me, that to keep persisting and persevering, because sometimes that, for me, it was a good 2 years where I was feeling stuck and trying different things, but nothing really felt like this is moving for me. And then all of a sudden things moved within a period of months. So keep in mind that things can sometimes just happen like that. The dam just breaks. So let's talk about taking action specifically and getting into this. This is a formula that I personally think is awesome for momentum, because sometimes it's just a matter of doing something, just starting. Sometimes we're so fixated on perfection that we don't start and just do something. So the challenge I would recommend to you, which I've also done myself, which is to think of, in a month, to do 100 actions toward your goal. Now that might feel a little overwhelming, like 100 actions. And when I first did this, I remember thinking, I don't even know what those 100 actions are in advance. If you do, that's great. But I'll tell you, the way that I work with this is every time I take an action, I write it down and I give myself a month's period. And frankly, the most that I've ever gotten to was 66. But I can tell you that 66 actions in a month did an enormous amount for making things happen in my life. So that's just something to keep in mind. But just the very act of committing to, I'm going to go for 100 actions toward this, you're going to help, something's going to happen. Just the pure volume, things are going to work in some capacity.
It sort of reminds me of, I ran my first marathon in December, and I'm not a runner. Before like 10 years ago, I had never run more than like 2 or 3 miles. And like training for a marathon and just doing like a little bit every day, like I was actually able to finish 26 miles, which was beyond my comprehension. And like, so like that was the first time I realized that just like, really, if you chip away in micro ways, like you can do huge things. So anyway, if that helps anybody.
Do you still use the language, I'm not a runner, or do you now identify with a more expanded identity around that? I'm just curious.
In all truth, I probably would say like, I'm not a runner who ran a marathon, but
yeah. And thank you for sharing that. Our language is so powerful, and it's just so interesting how we cling on to specific identities. What I also, another exercise to add to this that I got from a woman named Fabienne Fredrickson, there's actually 2. One is once impossible, now easy. So this is an exercise to consider the things in the past. I know we've talked about the future, but the things in the past that you considered impossible, or it was a reach, and now it's easy, it's your new normal. So in 2007, I walked around the lake wondering, how the hell am I going to do work that I love? And, years later now, it's like, okay, I'm doing that. And it's so easy to forget that you're often living a past dream that you've had. Mm-hmm. So really honoring that. Mm-hmm. It's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good. Okay. One of the things to think about, or what are some new habits that you could put into place? Routine is certainly, during COVID right now, I feel like people are really attaching to routines and how to have and feel more control. And from my perspective with this here, it's just simply what new habits could you create to help you move toward that particular goal? And I think sometimes too, we set these high goals for ourselves, daily goals, meaning, for example, I remember at one time I thought, okay, I'm going to meditate for an hour every day. And I never got there. And then I felt just like a piece of crap every day because I wasn't reaching my goal. And then I had someone loving in my life said, what if you just said, or so? So in other words, 15 minutes or so. And that or so gave this great sense of relief and liberation around, okay, maybe I might still say an hour or so, or whatever time frame, but that or so can help to take away some of that intense feeling of I have to accomplish this, and if I don't, I'm a terrible person, or whatever that might look like. And I love what you said before, Jeannie, about just the morning habits, like excuse me, in the morning, what could you do? And for some people, maybe it's in the evening, or like, for example, we've talked about this before, but the practice of a gratitude journal, but something that you do on a regular basis that's going to help you both internally. So what do you need to do on the internal side? And then also on the external, where you're actually talking to people, or getting your name out there, whatever that would look like for you.
One of my highest values is, well, my highest value is probably freedom, is freedom. And in the beginning, when I'm starting to work towards a goal, oftentimes I like to architect my habits as with a lot of structure and flexibility. So for example, when I started my business with very few clients, every day when I was confused about where to focus, and I would work hard all day long sitting at my computer, and then, often end the day discouraged some days, being like, I think I'm doing the right thing, but I'm not actually sure. I'm not actually sure if this is going to have an impact. And what if this is all for nothing? And I'm sure other people can probably relate to moments like that. So I finally reconciled it by saying, okay, here's what matters to me in my life: learning and development, working on my business, my spiritual practice, and my health. And there was some, there's other categories, but those were the core 4 areas for me. And so I just decided that I could choose whatever I wanted to do as the action within that category. But every day I had to make sure I could check the box that I showed up for that. And what that helped me do was, be more grateful, or focus my attention on what I was accomplishing instead of focusing my attention on the fear of what I wasn't, or, whatever that perception was. So there's a way to, in the beginning, and I can't stress this enough, it's the habit of showing up to the things you say that matter, being really unattached about how that looks, especially in the beginning, and being in integrity with yourself, because you end up feeling proud and energized by that, and that creates the momentum to move through the inertia of, the challenges.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Here's one thing that we don't do very often is celebrate our accomplishments. So when we think about action, so often we've got these milestones that we hit. A lot of times we don't really celebrate. So I think about back when I hiked the Grand Canyon. I spent 6 months training to do it with Team in Training, the organization that helps to raise funds for leukemia. And right after I finished, we had gotten up at 3 a.m. or something like that, finished the whole hike, got back to my hotel room, and I remember sitting down in the toilet saying, what's next? Like already I was ready for the next goal, the next thing, constantly achieving, constantly just moving towards something. And I remember having to say, like, just chill. Think about what you just accomplished. And I think about that, Meredith, just what you shared about the marathon, those physical feats, whatever it is that you've done, to celebrate and say, that's awesome that happened. And it can help not only to avoid burnout, but it can simply create a practice of recognizing yourself. And for those of you that are working with teams, or you've got people that you work with on projects, whatever it might look like, recognizing them as well, taking that time, because it feels good. It's a really good thing to do. Celebrating failure is another thing. Sarah Blakely is famous for this. She talks about how as a kid, around the dinner table, they would actually, her dad would actually ask each of them to say out loud how they failed today. I don't know about you, but that would not have been something in our household growing up that would have been celebrated. It's all about accomplishment and perfection and reaching the excellence. And the irony is that the more we try something, and frankly, the more we fail, the more we do reach that excellence because we've tried multiple times to get there. And I love this quote that she says here. It's important to be willing to make mistakes. The worst thing that can happen is you become memorable. So consider thinking about how you could look at your failures or even mistakes differently. Too often we judge ourselves and then we get down on ourselves, and then it might set us, we might be non-functioning for a couple days. So think about how that can help you. I know for me, many years ago when I was working for The Gap as one of their trainers, I thought I did a good job with the training, but I clearly did not, because my boss at the time came up to me afterward, asked me, well, what would you think? How did you think you did? And I could tell on her face that I completely bombed it, did not do, and I really felt lost because I didn't know what I could have done differently. But that's beside the point. What I want to share is that later I talked to my direct supervisor and said, I don't even know if I should be a trainer. I actually, that one thing was going to make me almost give up the entire career that I've had now. And she was so awesome because she goes, are you going to let this one event bring you down? Like totally change the trajectory of your dream and your life? Don't do that. And the coolest part was that I had her support, which was awesome. And that helped me as well. Just take everything I could, the fortitude inside myself to go, hell no, I'm not going to let that person say whatever they want to say. I'm going to move toward this. And it would have completely changed my career. Because sometimes these difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. Sometimes you often hear joy and suffering together, and there's a reason. Pain and purpose often go together. Sometimes we have to get through the hard times to get to the other side. So I want to encourage everybody to persevere and move through when you find things are challenging, because we're all going to face obstacles at some point. And what I want to remind you is coming back to the why you're doing the thing that you're doing. That can help to reground you in what was the point in the first place? Why was I moving toward this dream or this goal? And also give yourself permission if you want to change. Because I've also found that about people, okay, I'm going for this. Oh, but then it shifted, but now I'm going to look stupid, or I'm going to look like I had this goal and now I'm changing my mind. I'm going to look fickle, whatever that is. But recognize that you have the power to change that. We all have the power to change our mind. And remember what led us here. We've seen this before, but the whole idea around passion and following your passion, so key to live that out, because every one of us has a specific and unique voice, and the world needs it. And when we're not living in our giftings, we probably all had that experience. I certainly know I've felt it myself. I certainly know when I've seen it in my clients, and you can all notice this when you see somebody that's doing a job that they hate, or the worst, some of the these people that say, thankfully I don't hang around too many of them, but it's amazing how many people are in a job so that they can get to retirement. That to me would be the most miserable life of all. Like, oh, I'm just waiting 10 more years before I retire. Like, what? You all deserve to live a thriving, exciting life in this moment now.
I would encourage everybody to take a moment and write down one audacious action. So I really want everyone to leave with something written down for themselves. Maybe you've done this already. And begin the relationship of permission with that, with yourself, like seeing that within yourself. Because I often say it starts with ourselves. We are the source of our power. Live the dream now, live into the dream now. It's not starting tomorrow. Your potential is here. And so be in relationship to it now and start to relax your body, your mind, your being into that one thing. And as you hear your mind sort of start to maybe bring forth chatter, right? The thinking, the inner critic, just let it recede to the background and just be with that, not judging it, not anticipating the when or the how, just being with it and accepting it. It's already done in its own fashion, in its own way, in its own form. It starts with our relationship with ourself, with our goals, and totally accepting and giving ourselves permission that we can have this, that we're deserving of it. And whatever comes up for you there, that's the work, that's the work. I think we offered so many different mindset techniques, but ultimately I want to make sure that you walk away with what I believe to be the best technique is that we are making space for it. We're creating space in our lives. And I have been a very avid practitioner of mindset work. And there was a period of years, the last decade, where I really let that go. And neuroplasticity is real. My negative bias was so much more dominant because I didn't have my continued practices. So my main message is make the space. And that's, that looking back and looking at powerful moments in my life, I was constantly making the space for it as a top priority above other things. And you might be, I ran a mindset workshop, and one of the girls was working with a physician doing his copywriting, and she wrote down that she wanted to receive a $5,000 check, like one check from this physician for $5,000 for the work that she was putting in. And I think it was just on a retainer 1 month. And a couple of weeks later, she called me and was like, I actually got a $40,000 book deal from him, because she activated the intention of the 5K and moved towards the physician and started a dialogue. And then the next thing you know, he was like, actually, I really want to write a book. Is that something you can do? Would you be able to sort of ghostwrite that for me? I was just like, this is amazing. So she had been doing taking her own actions, laying the groundwork, but the mindset shift was the tipping point.
It's funny. I'm remembering when I was, my very first official job is in the corporate world. It was an HR manager. And I'll never forget really focusing on exactly what I wanted, where I wanted it to be, and setting the salary that I had in my mind. And the fact that just, again, setting the salary higher than I actually wanted, or expecting, like, what would I actually get then? I actually got more than, it's very similar to what you're talking about, Jeannie, but thinking about how important it is to, like, for me, it's kind of fun. I love to sort of play with numbers, like, oh, well, what if this happened? And either way, setting the benchmark to me is also really important. Just setting something so that then when it happens, you can measure it against that. So for me, I think about that related to numbers, whether it's in your business or for those of you that are working in companies with salaries. But key thing, we got to have faith in ourselves to move things forward. It really is that relationship with yourself, and whether you believe it can happen or not. And that is going to make all of the difference. One suggestion, for those of you that like to read, Jess Ekstrom is a speaker and an author, and she founded a company called Headbands of Hope to help cancer kids get these pretty headbands to wear, because she was volunteering in hospitals and found that they really didn't like the wigs very much and they kept falling off, but the headbands they loved. So she just wrote this book. It just came out a few months ago called Chasing the Bright Side. And if you haven't picked it up, or if you want something to encourage you a little bit, it's one of the best I've ever read. Her quotes are just, wow. Like every quote I read, I think, wow, that's really good. Because sometimes it's hard to think, oh, what else could somebody say? What new things could be said about positivity? And yet I really, really like what she has to say. So something to consider. And our suggestion is to pick one action from today. Jeannie already alluded to that and gave the suggestion there. But if there is anything else that you took away from this, first of all, we'd love to hear what that is. We'd also love to open it up to questions, comments, scenarios, anything that we can coach you on. And we've got just a couple minutes before the top of the hour here. So take 2 minutes, and then we'll officially wrap the whole thing in 2 minutes, and then stay on again like we have in the past for about 15 minutes after, if anybody wants to talk more. So anybody want to share something now about what you're going to do as a result of being here today?
I love the idea of like a list of actions. So just writing down one thing that I'm doing every day towards that goal. So I'm definitely going to start a just like numbered list and try to keep track of it each day.
Cool.
Great.
Awesome.
I'll add to that because we talked about the 100 actions. Fabian Fredrickson had taught me the 50 ways list, and I've used this a lot with sales and business development efforts, which is just in the back of my notebook or my planner. I would keep an ongoing list, or you can keep it in your notes section on your iPhone so that you can create the action list throughout your day, right? Like you have this list that you keep checking into. Ooh, I had another idea. This person's name, whether it's a person's name, whether it's a whatever ideas come to mind, and keep the list and then show up to the list. And then you don't necessarily know what action you want to take the next day, but if you set aside the time, the first 20 minutes, first, particularly with sales activities, when you're starting a business and making revenue is extraordinarily important, I would make that my priority, then open the list and then take whatever inspired action spoke to me. Like I would move in the direction. So it's nice to sometimes have that flexibility and those options with your list and action taking.
Anybody else want to share?
I think vocalizing the vision and actually hearing yourself say it to supportive groups, to groups that you're in that are related, that will be there to motivate you. I think that kind of just formalizes it instead of it just being this kind of internal vision.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something I'll try and focus on.
Great. And can I challenge you to do it, not just try? Maybe have one conversation.
I just sent my chat to the group. I sent it to a WhatsApp group with 30 women. So I got lots of love from the message simultaneously. So I did it once already.
That's so great.
Awesome. I am doing it.
I love it. One of the exercises that I love to do with my clients is an interview as if their dream has already happened. I interview them as if they're on a TV show or just us having a conversation, and prompt the question prompts to help activate those emotions and things around it. It's really, really fun to do. And it's usually very energizing. And you can do it also like a script in a journal, or you could record it also, verbalizing that out loud. So it is a minute past the hour. So why don't we jump in here and talk about where we've been and then where we're headed if you so choose to join us on the journey. So we've covered personality and point of differentiation, heart-driven mission and message, moving through fear, and today, vision and possibility. So this is our 4th workshop. And Jeannie, I'll turn it over to you.
We have another slide? Okay.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
What's next? All right. So we are going to be running a 6-week coaching experience. We're going to have 2 groups. There are 8 spots in each group. One will be focused, on emerging one will be catering to emerging entrepreneurs, and the other for experienced entrepreneurs. Again, if you're not an entrepreneur, but you're an intrapreneur and you're in a company, that still applies to you. And we're going to be focused on we'll be providing more information on this, but we'll be focused on 2 main things, which is finding your voice and speaking up with confidence, and personal brand identity work. So you'll leave with a brand brief that you can transfer over to your website, over to your platform, as well as, support with your communications around your brand as an entrepreneur. You can email me if you have interest. And then what we're going to do is next week or by the end of this week, we'll be sending out the syllabus. So on Friday, you'll receive a syllabus. If you have interest, you can take a look at that. And then the following week, we'd get on a call, to see how and if you fit into which group, if you have interest. So thank you, regardless, if this is where the journey leaves us together. I trust we'll stay connected. And anything else that you have to add, Karen?
Well, I wanted to express my gratitude for those of you that have come each time. And if this is your first time here, we're just grateful to have you, because it's certainly fun to explore these topics, and really want to wish everybody the best. And specifically, my wish for everybody is that you'll really honor yourself, honor your heart, and go out and be the best version of yourself in the world. So that would be my encouragement to everybody. So we'll stay on for a few more minutes here. If anybody wants to chat, ask any questions, or share any stories, we'd be happy to do that. So I'm going to take it off of this. Again, email Jeannie if you'd like to sign up, and then let's just chat for those of you that want to stay. Questions, comments?
I love that comment. Thank you for a special group of humans. I can't, Jelena, thank you for that comment. Yeah, I know that you guys have really activated me, and so I want to also thank you for that. All right, any inspirational stories about how you've actualized a vision, or any other questions?
I wanted to share something really quick. Karen had done a little mini retreat for our office a few weeks ago, and somebody in my office had shared a story that at her last job, she was, she had made an intention of wanting a new position. And what she did was she changed her password. So every time she had to log in, she had typed in what it was that she wanted, or that she had already done it. And I thought that was a really great way, because we type our passwords in multiple times a day, and just a kind of like a micro intention. And so that day I changed mine, and and especially, well, because running an office of 25 people and feeling very responsible for everything that's going on right now, it feels like a lot of weight. And so I changed my password to "I am fearless!" ! And I write it in every single time I sit at my computer. And it feels amazing to just write it like, so for me, it's a small thing, but it really helps a lot. So
I'm so glad that you did that.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So great. Now we all know Cecilia's passwords.
Yeah. Right.
Anybody want to manage 25 people?
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm so glad, Cecilia. That's so great. Love it.
I would love to hear from someone else. And before that, putting a reminder in your calendar 3 times a day, especially with your core desired feelings or your why statement, to just activate it throughout the day, can also be a great way to focus your intention and energy towards that which you want to experience.
I'll share something. Hi. I just wanted to say I was like taking notes, and I really appreciate the reminder to celebrate failures. I've basically I'm a writer, and I've been kind of trying to pivot the kinds of stories that I write about. And so last week I went out on a limb and wrote up a pitch, and I sent it to all these publications and got a bunch of rejections, or some people didn't even respond. And I don't know, I got really down on myself over the weekend because I was just bummed about the response. And I noticed myself quickly wanting to go back to what I usually do, which is health journalism. And it's easy for me. I've done it for over 10 years, and I just quickly wanted to run back into my little cave and be like, okay, let me just go back over here and do the thing I know how to do. And I don't get rejected. I get assignments. I make money. Blah, blah, blah. And so it was just a good reminder, because I've been journaling about it and realizing okay, that idea didn't work. It's a failure, but I can still be proud of myself for pushing myself and going out on a limb, putting myself out there, being vulnerable. The sting of rejection stings, but I just got to be proud that I did it and keep going. And yeah, just reminding myself that at least I'm in the game. I'm playing. I'm out there, and I'd rather be doing that and failing than sitting on the sidelines and wondering what if. Mm-hmm. So thanks for the reminder. And I love Sarah Blakely. So
that's,
me too. Well, it's another way to look at it too is that for every rejection, that just means you're closer to a yes. I know this is really going to date me, but I used to sell Mary Kay cosmetics when I was 18 years old. And I actually did really well. I made a lot of money. And one of the things that I remember they used to say, which I don't think it has to be this dramatic, but you have to get 50 no's before you get a yes. So that was
Yeah.
the goal. And I thought, oh man, so if you can, that can potentially offer some perspective. I don't know if that's encouraging for anybody or makes it feel more daunting, but I do think it's something to think about.
I'll also add to that, Abby, that it didn't work in that container maybe, but it doesn't mean that it won't work on another forum. So I'm even thinking right now, like if you tell us who you would love to write for, right? We might know somebody. So oftentimes we bring our desire and we bring our ask into a certain container, and that container might not activate it, but there's many containers, there's infinite containers. So I really encourage you to start to think about where else can I bring this outside of the traditional path. And that might lead you to connecting with people on LinkedIn, or so, I had once, so I was interested in producing things. And so one day I just happened to, LinkedIn popped up, and a girl that went to Tufts with me, who was a senior when I was a freshman and we played field hockey together, her name popped up and I saw it said producer. And I was like, oh my God, I love Dana Chivvis. Like, she was awesome to play sports with. And I decided to message her and I was like, hey, I want to get into this like producing thing. Like, I would love to catch up with you. Sent her the message, never even looked at her background. And then we connected, made a date. Fast forward, it's the day before the meeting. And I'm like, I should probably like see what she's been up to for the last 8 years. And she was one of 4 producers of Serial, which was put podcasting on the maps.
Yeah.
So then I show up to the meeting and I was like, I didn't know you were famous, but like, hey, this is all I have to say is like, it can come in the most through the most unexpected moments. I wasn't like trolling LinkedIn a ton. I just happened to be on it, saw this person, made a connection, and it opened. So then she introduced me to someone who has completely transformed my life, a coach that I ended up working with, that opened the doors of possibility in my life. So many containers by which we can flow through.
It's so fun, Jeanne. You're making me think of all these things. I love it, because I was thinking about one of my clients who I had just started with. We were having our first session, and she was a technical writer, but her dream was to work for National Geographic. But she was really needing to overcome a lot of self-doubt and fear around it. And it was funny because I said, well, I actually am really close with someone who writes for National Geographic. I said, would you like me to make an introduction? Or I think I might have said, would you like to make a request of me? And it's funny how, again, most things don't happen that. It's not like she immediately got a job there or anything, but she was able to have a conversation with him and do an informational interview. So I think it's also a good reminder about asking and being aware that things could open up in unexpected ways.
And to make you extremely awkward, Abby, I know Abby personally, is there anything that we can help you with? Is there anything that we should be keeping an eye out for, the kinds of people or places that you might be interested in connecting with?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, I pitched my idea to the New York Times, and I actually, people did respond. They just say like vague things, like it's not a fit. And then I kind of get like, normally I would just be like, okay, but I forced myself to write back, thanks, like, can you share more on what you are looking for so I can send you more relevant pitches in the future? And then they don't respond. But yeah, I can share. So who I pitched is the New York Times, the Washington Post, Huffington Post, Medium. I actually really like the human parts vertical on Medium. I don't know if anyone here reads it or knows someone there. So, and New York Magazine, if anyone knows someone. But yeah, I've just been like cold pitching, and I am a journalist. I have a lot of experience, so I email them cold and just I send them my clips and a link to my website, which I think is nice looking. And it's tricky. So what I'm pitching is controversial. It's about race and racism in this country. And what I pitched was in response to the Ahmaud Arbery shooting. And through talking with some friends, like I think it's going to be challenging for me to get what I want to say published in the traditional media outlet, because they don't want to hear it. And race and racism is highly controversial. And when they do write about it, they probably want someone who's more of like a quote unquote expert. A lot like the New York Times will publish things, but it'll be like professor of race and gender studies at Columbia University, and people who have credentials like that I don't. So yeah, like one of the things I've been thinking is maybe just to start my own Medium channel, and just blast it out myself and see if I can get traction and followers. And you know, I am a journalist. I would prefer to get paid for what I write, but at the same time, I'm so passionate about what I want to say that I kind of don't care if I get paid. So I might just put it on Medium.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like
does anyone here have a Medium channel or anything that they post regularly on? No.
I like the idea of, I mean, a lot of those are obviously well-known publication like platforms. And I know that there's a whole number of platforms, and finding the zones of people that share that passion and starting to share with them as the entry point to then expand, you know, like leading with passion, like we've talked about. So ideating that list, that 50 ways list of all of those publications. Now what's the second tier? Keep going, and nothing stopping you from sharing your passion. And I'll also just add, I did this a lot with career transition coaching, where I would encourage people to make videos of like 90 seconds of who they are and what they're about, because that can be more compelling and attention grabbing in a sea of pitches and a sea of resumes. You know, it's do the thing that most people aren't doing. And if you have nothing to lose anyway, because you've gone down that path.
You know, I've been thinking about this, and I keep seeing people saying that like video resumes are the new resume. What?
I didn't know if they were the new resume.
I'm so resistant to doing that.
Yeah.
And what the fuck? Just try it. I guess I could just do it. Because people are so lazy. They don't want to read my long pitches or essays. They just want like a 20-second video to be like, is this even a real person? Is she even like legit? But
I used to cynically say, like, the person on the other side might really hate their job. Like, I used to be a recruiter, and I was like, I can't wait for lunch. I'm just going to take a quick skim. And like, you know, so you have to understand how, you know, often it's so not personal. And, you know, so Melissa Wood Tepperberg of Melissa Wood Health, which I know many of you know, she wanted to be on video. And I think I've shared a bit of this story. And I said, okay, start sending the videos, start doing it. So she would send me these videos and talk about health food products. She was so stiff. Like I remember when I would open it and be like, and we'd have a conversation. She'd be like, this is almond milk. It's got vitamin D. And she just, you know, but that was the entry point. The other week so that was the entry point, and long story short, she got momentum and then started slowly dripping out video. And then a fitness app actually contacted her. And then that was her entree into creating a fitness platform. Now she owns her own platform and has this membership platform that's really scaled significantly. But it didn't start there. And, you know, the other week I was wanting to create something, and I shot a video and I didn't share it. And just know that you don't have to share it. Be in relationship with yourself first, with the thing that you want. Because when we bottleneck our creative flow, like that's when inertia really sets in, and depression. And, you know, so nothing's stopping you from being in an intimate relationship with your passion and what you want to express in whatever context you have available to you right now.
I love that. Thank you.
Well, we need to wrap, I believe. So please, anything else you want to say, Jeannie?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's just so great. It's been such a pleasure. And we look forward to continuing on with anybody that would like to do that. So as a reminder, you can email Jeannie if you'd like to be involved. And we look forward to our paths crossing, whether it's continuing immediately or in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
This was
Thank
so
you.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.